Hello everybody, welcome back to another review on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee and of course with me is Milly.
Hi.
We have Dan,
Hi.
we have Sophie,
Hey.
and today we are going to be reviewing Scooby Doo Camp Scare, which is definitely one that I've been excited to get to for a while. So this is part of the new Scooby Doo reviews that we're starting and reviewing now, but this one, like the last one we did, there's not going to be an interview announced at the end of this per se, but there's still going to be some good fun to be had. And we're going to try and do these like with each of our picks once a month, so stay subscribed to that and comment down below if there's anyone that you want to see us cover next. We'll try and do so. I think that'll be a fun way to do things. So, Millie, as our MC, as our camp counselor in many ways, would you like to guide us through this movie?
Okay, Camp Scare, and we start off with a cold open again here, very Scooby formula. So it's a campfire at Camp Little Moose, and I just think they set it up so well. I really like when they do cold openings. Obviously, you sat around the campfire, you're hearing all the scary campfire stories, and then the silhouette appears of is it the woodsman? The
Yeah, yeah.
woodman. And it is the one of the most terrifying Scooby villains we have seen in a very long time. Like me as a child would have been petrified watching this, especially, like when it cuts the second time you see it and it's in the fire silhouette and it is massive, like it's a huge villain. I think it's brilliant. One of the best cold openings nearly of any Scooby movie ever off the top of my head. I'm struggling to think of one that's competitive. So for me, it was straight into positivity. JB, on to you. What did you think of the cold opening? What do you think of the villain they've set up?
I think on merit, it may be the scariest one that we've got in a DTV, which is quite a bold claim. It's just, I suppose, in this day and age, maybe I would have felt differently as a kid, but sat here, 25 years old, after seeing stuff like The Walking Dead, World War Z, stuff with like live action zombies, for all I still think that the zombies on Zombie Island are kind of freaky. It's kind of like I've kind of experienced the more gory and spooky side of zombies now. Whereas this woodsman, it's like it's not even I mean it is a Scooby-Doo villain, but this could genuinely be a crazed person that you could meet out in the world, as terrifying as that sounds. And for all I can't relate to going to camp or being in camp, just the fact that it is essentially some cabin of the woods axe villain, it's just amazing. I think it's fantastic, and it does give me the willies, I must admit.
Yeah, it certainly is quite a scary opening. And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I love this intro. When you put a film on called Scooby Doo Camp Scare, like this is the intro you expect. And I used to go camping. I don't actually like camping, but I used to go all the time because I was part of the Cubs. And it was very reminiscent of that because that like most of when you go camping is telling scary stories, is saying like, oh, there's a killer in the woods and how terrified you are to then sleep. So I think this captured it perfectly. And I think the woodsman, like you said, he's very different for a Scooby villain. He is quite like it's like something I imagine in live action would be quite scary. So I think no, I think it was quite effective for a film called Scooby Doo Camp Scare. This is the intro you want. It's obviously still cartoony, but it's scary. And I think if I'd watched this as a kid, yeah, I think it would have freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. This is definitely one that I'm enjoying now, as like JB said, a 25-year-old that loves Scooby growing up watching it back a lot more than I think I would have done if I was a 7-year-old child. And that was the opening scene. I don't think I'd have got very far into the movie. And Sophie, it was you that requested Camp Scare as this week's review. We were around to you. So, how do you feel it does as an opening scene?
I remember watching it being like 7 years old, and I've never got bored of it. Like then I was like, oh, wow, this is scary. And still now I'm like, wow, it's just brilliant. It's like kind of like a slasher movie like they're setting up, and it's a real fear factor. And I know it's a Scooby movie, so going into it, you don't want it to be too scary, but they really build up this cold open, and I just love it. I mean, it's just brilliant. I'm sorry. I like when you said like the fire, the angles. Oh, beautiful. Perfection. It's such a good opening.
I mean, I think perfection is a very good word, certainly for the first 3 minutes of this movie. So to get that opening scene and then the titles, it's like having a nightmare crying and the titles are the hug you get from your parents afterwards. Like they are so comforting. It's like being back in the what's new era to have that really good. I just find the song very like energizing, like it perks you up ready to sit and be invested in the movie. I want to say it's maybe one of the best, not only cold openings, but then title songs as well. Certainly, my memory's not the best, but I'm saying for both, it has to be in the top three, if not number one. It was a brilliant title song. And also the animation was really good. It set it all up really well. JayBee, we're gonna go on in the same order again. So what about you?
I'm not ready. Yeah. So this is interesting. I believe that this is another Andy Sturmer, which is I've spoken about for a while. And you know when there's someone maybe you go to school with them that's just so naturally funny without even trying, and then the second they get a compliment about how funny they are, they then try and be funny, and then they're so unbelievably not. To me, that's a little bit like Andy Sturmer's skill for music. Like I feel like he does some of the catchiest and like kind of almost kid boppy thing, but someone at some point told him that that's what he's really good at, and so now it's almost too cutesy and cuddly. This, I think, is the sweet spot with his work where it is that absolute level where it gives you like you can just keep replaying it in your head. Like to me, this is him at his best, firing on all cylinders. It's a little bit, it reminds me a lot, like both tempo wise and maybe even lyrically as well, of that Walking on Sunshine song. You could almost call it a little bit derivative of that, but it works and I really like it. So to me, this is one of the best Andy Sturmers. One day I'm gonna do like a top 10 Andy Sturmer tracks because he's done so many now, and there are more that I like than that I don't. But yeah, this is brilliant, and the visuals are fantastic. I guess if you want to criticize it, maybe for me, because I'm so in love with the era of Zombie Island, you could have a little bit more of an atmospheric, creepy intro, but at the end of the day, it's just fun. Like it's just a fun intro, so I'm very happy.
I was expecting me to be the only one that's going to be critical in this, but I actually disagree with you. I'd say that if
Really?
you'd have had a spooky intro on top of that cold opening, it would have been overbearing. Like, I feel like you needed that refresher
Like a palate cleanser.
to get you into the movie. Because, like I said, if you're a like child that's just seen that the cold opening, I feel like you need something to kind of get you back in this movie. Like, it's okay, I can watch this and I'm not gonna be terrified. And I feel like the song does that very, very well. But I can see what you mean. It is a very stark contrast between the two. Dan, what did you think?
Yeah, oh no, I love these titles. I know when we reviewed Chill Out Scooby Doo, I just basically said if there's no music or if I think it's boring, I will just fast forward the titles. But I absolutely do not fast forward through these. I think the song is great. It ties, I'd have to do a full rewatch, but it ties with I think Stage Fright for me for being one of the better intros.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love the titles. It was very reminiscent for me of like the second series of Where Are You? That when they would go into like a music montage, it was very similar to that. And I'd say, yeah, I think it was after that intro, I think you sort of needed these titles to be a bit quirkier. Like I know you brought up Zombie Island, but they had their titles rather creepy and it was very atmospheric. But then obviously they immediately had that Scooby Monster chase scene with the Scooby Doo music played. So I feel they also had to have a bit of creepiness, but then say, no, we can't scare the kids too much, we? So I think this is the perfect way to sort of have that scary intro, but then the titles are like, no, no, it's okay. It's still always Scooby-Doo. It's still just a bit of fun. So no, these titles get a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, definitely. And Sophie?
The music in this movie is amazing. I'm sorry, I just love it. It's just feel good, summery vibes, just beautiful. The animation, I love it. I think they did it in this one, Abracadabra Do and Phantasaur. All the openings in the animation style, beautiful. Bring it back. We love it. I even had to paint a big Daphne in that style. It's beautiful. But yeah, the songs, oh, I love them. I've got them all on Spotify. Every time they pop up on my playlist, I'm like, yes. I'm like, literally turn the music up. They're so catchy. and they really feel good, and it's just brilliant. And like you said, it's a good job. You know, you've had like this really scary opening, and it's gonna be like light-hearted Scooby, like we all know. So it's a good balance, and then it kind of is a good lead into the actual like scenes of the gang. So yeah, the music is great in this movie.
I think it all sets it up really well. So then, like you say, it moves on to the gang. Then they are in the process of buying supplies because they're going to go camping to Camp Little Moose, which is like Fred's old summer camp, which I must say I do really like how the warden has the same orange ascot as Fred. It's almost like, oh, is that where that comes from? Is that like the origin of that? I just think that it's a really nice nod to the connection between Fred's character and kind of his upbringing and stuff, really, because we don't normally see that kind of extension from the current time with any of the gang. So it was just kind of nice to see that. But I do think that there is a few references that make this a lot more fun to watch, like I say, when you're older, like up Schmidt's Creek without a paddle. That made me actually laugh, like properly laugh. And I don't think many Scoobies do make me like fully laugh that way. Certainly not anymore. Like if you think of, I'm probably going to be wrong and have laughed at something to do with it, but like if you think of like the crossover movies like Crypto and stuff like that, I think it's so busy being a promotion that you don't actually get the funny bits, the story bits and stuff like that. And so yeah, instantly I'm really liking what they've set up here. I guess that probably doesn't need me to go around everyone like individually and stuff, but did anybody else have any thoughts certainly on like they're at that department store, the kind of jokes and stuff, how they set things up?
That's good. That's good. I guess the animation style is something I pick up on with the gang at this point, and it is very similar to the Crypto 2 one where you've got a bit of a browner Daphne and stuff. It's a style that I do like, and I think certainly for this movie it works perfectly. But in general, I kind of would like to see a more stylized take on like the characters if we're gonna stay with them for so long. But yeah, I like it a lot.
See, the animation was the next point I did want to come on to because I think there are a couple of points here. We will get onto all the individual outfits and stuff because we see quite a few iterations of them throughout this movie. Um, but I do think that the animation is great. It all looks really nice, but it was a little bit flawed in that, like, as we saw in the very earliest Scoobies, there was a scene right, right at the start as they're leaving the store where they've forgotten that she's meant to have tights on. There's a scene as soon as they get to Camp Little Moose where they're missing the bottom light purple line off Daphne's dress. There is multiple times throughout this movie where they just don't bother to put the SD on Scooby's collar, and then other times when they do. So to me, there was a couple of bits of animation where I'm a bit like, not too sure. I mean, overall the style looks nice. I think it's more just a couple of like detail points that is like, if we're watching this back and you saw it, surely, and we saw it, if you were doing a proof, surely you'd have seen it as well. JayBee, yeah, I know you'd started to talk about the animation already, but was there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I don't really notice stuff like that. I don't really know why. And even then it's kind of like you could almost interpret it, although I'm sure it isn't intentional, as like the most unintentional homage to some of the old animation eras of like the 1969 series. But no, it's not something that really bothers me or that I notice too much.
Okay. And Dan, did you have any thoughts on the animation, either those details or just the overall look of the movie in general?
Yeah, well, I can honestly say I didn't notice those errors, but that has made me smile. That is just so classic Scooby. Because one of my favorite things about what we watch, like Where Are You and the Scooby Doo show stuff, because I've watched them so many times now, it's like and looking for the fault, and there's just so many. There's so many animation errors and those things. But no, I don't mind that they've obviously slipped up a bit. I can't imagine how difficult it is having to animate the film. But I think overall, I thought the film was beautiful. I love this animation style. I love the like 2010 onwards sort of made for TV or made for direct to DVD films. I love the animation style because I think it's just beautiful. It's the classic like 1960s look, but just modernized. I love it, and I thought this was no exception. I thought the animation throughout was good. I liked when they were at Camp Little Moose, like the greens. It was very like it just felt like you were at a summer camp. So no, I love the animation in this.
Yeah, I think color palette wise and everything like that, it did look really beautiful. And Sophie, what about you?
Yeah, I love this animation. Like Dan said, like the 2010s, the early 2010s, the perfect animation style for these movies. I think the same colour palette in the Fantasy, it's really bright and bold. But another thing is it's quite a scary movie. And in the scary parts, they change it to fit the theme, which is brilliant. Like the colour palette throughout this movie. I really think, the scary part's really scary, dark, dull. And then obviously it's a summertime movie. It's like bright, bold, beautiful. I think just before then, one of my favourite parts is when they're driving into Camp Little Moose. Um, Instead of Daphne, it's Velma that says this place is a dump, and it's Daphne trying to pick up Velma saying, "No, it's rustic." Like, look at it. Like, I love how they kind of swapped what you probably think it should be. Like, Daphne would obviously say that, but no, it was Velma, and that bit cracked me up a lot. But no, this animation style spot on, and it really fits the theme and style of this movie. So I love it.
I like what you're picking up on there as well, because I'm going to assume that, like you said, it would only be Daphne that does that. But I think there's certain movies where she's linked closer to Fred. Like later on in this one, they're holding hands and things like that. So I'm almost wondering if that's because she wants to kind of not let his feelings be hurt.
Oh.
Whereas if it was anybody else, if it was Shaggy's place they're going to or something like that, I imagine she'd probably be a bit more vocal. But I do think they try and link them quite closely in this movie. So, like you said, they're then at Camp Little Moose. It kind of makes me laugh a little bit before that as well, how you see Camp Big Moose first, and it's like, oh, that's the one we want to go to. And it's like, no, end up at this one. Kind of reminds me of what's the movie I used to like, Daddy Day Camp?
Daddy Day Camp, yeah, where you've got like the posh, like you can call it like a Tory camp where it's all like snobby and stuff. And then you've got like your bog standard, average everyday, normal bloke man. Um that camp. It's like the underdog story, which I like, because it's like the classic coming of age underdog. Oh, it's lovely. It's lovely.
It is, and I like all the characters that they introduce around this point as well. And I think they give each one their own distinct feature. So it's not kind of like, I hate to use this as an example because I love so much of Joe Sichter's work, but chill out, Scooby Doo. For me, there were so many characters, and I struggled to stick with every single one of them. Whereas this one, you've got the main camp counselor, you've got the three children that turn up, each with very distinct personalities. One that's very closely linked to Fred, one that's very closely linked to Velma. So even if you don't know their names, I don't even know if they're all given a name, there's a character that you have linked each one of those to. So you have all those things that you associate with them. Also, something that I think is quite funny, at least makes me smile around this point as well, is when the sheriff turns up and he likes Velma, not Daphne, and Daphne's reaction, like when he compliments somebody and she's like, "Oh, thanks, but no," and he's like, "Yeah, didn't mean you." Kind of makes me laugh, completely baffles me, but it's interesting. JayBee, I'm sure you've got some thoughts.
I don't know, it was a funny one-off joke, but I think the constant repetition of it and how kind of persistent he is despite Velma's kind of obvious disinterest. If I was perhaps more leaning onto the lines of SJWism, or not even that, if I was just more outspoken, I would almost call it slightly chauvinistic and a little bit like, yeah, that's kind of icky behavior.
I'm gonna say, interrupting you because you know I like a good disagreement here. I'm gonna say if this was Daphne's character, you wouldn't be saying a thing. You
What do
say
you
that
mean?
you say that it's repeated. I'm sure he only says it twice.
No, it's like
But
three
because it's somebody
times.
like in Velma, you're like,
And
oh
then there's
God,
the
no, you
winking
can't be
at
doing
the end. They're like, "Oh, like, will you wait for me?" Like, it's so icky. Like it, and when you think about how that these are most likely teenagers,
I can't believe you just said the word icky.
and this guy has clearly made his way up for the Ranger Force or the police force, we can interpret him as a relatively adult man. I just don't know. I really don't know. It's not wrong. It doesn't offend me. I'm not gonna go to bed tonight with my fist shaking in the air like, oh, that guy. But like, it is a bit like, oh, a
You
bit
said the
cringe.
age thing, but I do get the vibe they're a bit older in this movie. The fact that they're looking after children, I don't know, just like even the handholding between Fred and Daphne, it's kind of like, oh, they've maybe moved on a couple of years and they're together now, or something like that. You can't. I just always get a feel that this movie's a step forward from the rest. It's just that little bit further on. Dan, how did you feel about all the characters they introduced around this time, from the kids, the sheriff? Do you think they're all given like enough of their own personalities, things like that?
Yeah, I really like the characters in this. Like you say, you've had certain Scooby films where just a lot of the characters just blend, they're not memorable. I liked all of them. I liked the kids. I liked the sheriff. Um, I didn't mind that joke so much. The one of where Daphne kept thinking it was her, and he was like, "No, I'm not talking to you." I quite liked it. It was quite I quite like how Daphne wasn't sort of. She didn't seem jealous. She almost seemed happy for Velma at certain points. I did think it was weird though that they never really. I don't really get it. There was no sort of follow up. Like they didn't even act as if he was a potential love interest for Velma. It was just sort of this joke they did. But no, I didn't mind it. But no, I like the characters in this. I think the characters are what makes it. I think with certain Scooby projects, like if the characters hadn't been good, especially the kids, can't remember the girl's name. I think the boy was Luke. I think them two, especially if they hadn't been good characters, I could have maybe sank the film. But they are. They're pretty good. They're pretty useful as well, especially when you introduce like little kid characters. They could be annoying. They might not. They might hinder the plot, but they didn't. I thought they were really good.
I think you've highlighted something there that's just made me think as well. I think one thing that I do like about the Velma part with that other character is that they don't use it as a love interest, because quite often, as soon as there's an external character that shows interest, they pin them two together all the way throughout the movie. And it becomes a bit painful, and there's an era of Scooby where it's very much like that, where every time either Fred, Daphne, or Velma has a new love interest, every kind of like on a continuous thing. And I kind of like how there isn't this thing where Velma's all of a sudden like, oh yeah, this person's showing an interest, maybe I need to do this to make an effort. It's like, no, just
They
no.
do kind of do that a bit later on with that Jessica, though, really. Not to that extent. It's not really a dynamic between Fred and Jessica, but more of a dynamic between Daphne and Jessica, or
Yeah,
Daphne
just the instant
and
slide.
Fred to Jessica. Like I do think they kind of do it like that, but I'd rather that storyline than what in my eyes is essentially a nonce, like a nonce adjacent character. Um,
Moving swiftly on the mention of Jessica, was it Sophie? Did you say that on certain
oh,
iterations that's been fully removed?
Yep.
I mean, I must say, when you see the first scene of her in a bikini, I can kind of see why. Like, they're certainly alluding to stuff.
well, I don't know what they're alluding to, but it is very almost like a scene out of Baywatch. It's like, oh, I hate these Tories with their fancy cars and their hot councillors, and she's just there looking like Pamela Anderson. It's kind of like,
Well, I'm gonna sound like such. I'm gonna sound like something. This is gonna sound like something my gran would say. So I already am dreading saying it. But like, even the use of the color red for her bikini and stuff like that, I feel like
it's like special care.
there. No, but that if you want like that is like an association of like. There's just associations with that color. It's meant to kind of be a sexual color. So I feel like there was deliberate kind of jabs towards that direction.
Sexual. What is Santa Claus like some major hunt?
Like, you know how like blue's meant to be a color associated with relaxing because of like the sea and stuff like that, and like the natural thing of the waves, and like there's color association.
Yeah, it's a bit racy. But what was that scene cut out then, Sophie? That initial introduction. How do they handle it?
Yes, I think like it's Fred and Luke in the boat, isn't it, the canoe, and she comes in the speedboat, and they get splashed with the water, but then it doesn't turn to her, and you miss the part where Fred sent hot counselor, like that bit completely cut out. But I do remember when I was like a kid, like it went completely over my head. Like I didn't actually know what he was saying, but I didn't question it. But obviously now it's quite a funny gag to some degree. But yeah, they cut that bit out completely, and the end scenes with them and the woodsman when he jumps like suicidal down the tower sort of thing, they
So
all
to
cut
me,
that
that's
out.
wild, because I guess you can forgive me for saying so, but there is only so many ways that you can present a bikini, be that in live action and animation, and you know what I mean? And it isn't a thong bikini. So it's just standard bikini as you would expect, right?
And you get a
Whereas,
bikini scene from Daphne.
well, not just that, but a bikini looks like a bikini. That's what a bikini is. You can argue for that or against that in kids animation, whatever. The thing that I'm surprised wasn't kind of questioned was Daphne's shorts, because they are really, really, really short shorts. Like if that was on live action, it would almost be like a thong wedgie, and there's no need for shorts to look like that. Like, you know what I mean? A bikini looks like a bikini, but those are intentionally, almost gratuitously short shorts. I'm surprised that no one at animation was a bit like, can we maybe like to like lower these a little bit. Like, I don't know. That to me is kind of like shorts don't need to look like that, but a bikini looks like a bikini. You know, it is what it is.
Just I quite liked her camp outfit. I just
Oh, I
think it's
liked it,
very
yeah.
like Daphne. There's
was
purple
lovely.
shorts. She doesn't just wear the shirt as a normal shirt. She's got to stylize it a bit herself and like tie a knot in it, things like that. I like how they did her camp
Oh,
outfit, and
it's
obviously
lovely, but
the bikini was very her as well with the
Yeah.
purple colouring.
Okay.
I guess we'll kind of go on to the characters now and like kind of those additional outfits, because I did like Fred's as well. He obviously got to keep his ascot, and then the blue shorts is like the same colour as he normally wears. It's Velma. They did it with Gourmet Ghost, where everyone else got these really nice formal outfits, and Velma's was a plain black dress. And then I feel like they've done it here. She just gets a normal camp outfit and a plain white swimming costume. And it's kind of like almost like they associate the glasses are enough to definitively point out her character, whereas everyone else just gets something that's their colour, something that's, you know, their identity. And I just think that plain white swimming costume couldn't be any more the epitome of we just don't put the effort in with Velma, because I kind of feel like they don't. JayBee, anything you want to add on the outfits?
I don't disagree, but then canonically, is Velma perhaps less conscious about? I mean, you don't need to, you don't need to deep it. Like they should have that type of association with characters. But I will say, based on the animation style that they've used and the tone, like the skin tone, a orange bathing suit might just look like Velma's naked, like from a distance. So I can kind of see that they would want to avoid that. But they could again, because the two colors for Velma are orange and red. So I was going to say, oh, you can make it red, but then we've already discussed that that could be a bit Baywatchy. So I don't know.
Okay, but for Velma's camp outfit, you could have given her, she normally wears a red skirt. You could have given her red shorts that are obviously longer than Daphne's, or like more like cargo style shorts.
Are there not skirts that you can wear in like the pool and stuff like in the
Yeah, you
city?
can almost get like a dress that you wear.
That's what she could. Oh, you know what? You could have just gone the whole hog with it and just given her a bait, like a full-on wetsuit, and that's just like Velma's wetsuit. I
Yeah.
don't even mind that.
It genuinely just seemed like that white swimming costume was like a we'll fix this later when we know what we want to do, and then they forgot to. I just don't see why they'd go with plain white. Dan, did you notice, did you have any thoughts on the outfits? Anything you perhaps would have done differently? Anything that you liked?
Yeah, well, like I said in the Gourmet Ghost review, I like the gang, no matter what they're wearing, no matter how unrealistic it is, they should always have their colours. And it does annoy me that white swimming outfit, that's always annoys me. And like you say, it's why? Why is it just this white? But yeah, I think it's more like you say, like Daphne's and Fred's, everything like they've got stuff that suits them. So it seems weird that they're just with Velma, just like, no, let's put her in white. I don't like it. I didn't mind so much that she just had like the standard uniform on, because that feels more like her. Like Daphne's definitely someone who, no matter what, she would have to stylize it. With Velma, she's very like a stickler for the rules. She's very prim and proper. So it didn't bother me. I can imagine her being like, no, this is what you're supposed to wear. This is how it's supposed to look. So I'm going to wear it exactly like this. So that part didn't bother me so much. But yeah, the outfit, like the rest of the gang, I thought they looked great. I thought their outfits, like the swimming outfits and everything, were perfect. But no, it's just Velma again. I just don't get it.
Mm. Or even to continue on with, you know, she's tried on that mosquito suit at the start because she doesn't like camping. To have continued with that narrative a little bit. So I don't know, say for example, she's the only one wearing like trousers or things like that because she's going to get bug bites. And I don't know, just I feel like that was mentioned at the start, but wasn't exactly delivered on throughout. Or they could have just, I feel like Velma's character, almost like the reason the sheriff's interested in it is because her character almost fully fades into the background here. You've got it's Fred's camp, it's Daphne there as like the big supporting character for Fred. She's really positive about anything he does, but also with the Jessica element, the bit of jealousy. Shaggy and Scooby always have their own kind of side story, and I do feel like Velma kind of fades into the background a little bit. So I don't know. I feel like there's maybe a little bit more they could have done with her character, but Sophie, we're gonna go on to you. What was your thoughts on the outfits and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I didn't mind them. I feel like with Valma, like Dan said, she'd be a sticker for the rules sort of thing. Like she'd be the girl at PE with all the correct like PE kit, all the non-branded trainers, like literally the bare basic outfit just to like wear and like tick a box. Daphne also was like stylized. I will say about her shorts, you know, they look like they've been ripped sort of thing. So it looks like she's done them sort of thing. So I don't know if that's the idea that I've got, like, you know, a teenager trying to be like, oh, you know, cool and whatever. Fred, yes, the ascot, like that always has to stay. I will say with Bert, he's got the orange ascot, like we said, you know, you can see why Fred is the way he is. If Bert was his camp leader every time he went to summer camp, like it just makes sense. Like it's perfect. It's so funny. But Shaggy, yeah, I like how they kept like the oversized shirt over top of his t-shirt, like trying to keep the baggy look, and then he had his like trousers on, like fine. They did like shake it up a bit with his shorts. Like they had like the blue shorts with the green leaves on, which, you know, like more like a Hawaiian theme, which isn't really what we've seen Shaggy in before. Fred had standard blue shorts. Daphne had like her purple bikini, and then going back to Velma, yeah, I mean, she did have the white bucket hat. It kind of like went. I think she was matching. We'll go with that. She wanted to have the full look sort of thing. But yeah, it's the butt scene with Daphne that they over animate.
There's a couple of scenes they do over animate, I will admit. Like JayBee said, there's a certain like, I don't know, more of a nature to this than there is other Scooby iterations. But I do feel, like I said, that this is a one where the gang's a bit older, where the target audience is a little bit older as well. So at this point, they have had the argument as to which lake they, oh no, I'm kind of skipping ahead. So this is when they're still back at the camp. It's because we were talking about the swimming costumes. I've gone straight to that scene. So that at this point, they're still at the camp, and this is where Scooby sees the woodsman for the first time. So again, I just really like this villain. I feel like it fits really quite well. I don't feel like there's any more to add at that point. Anything anyone else wants to add before we move on to kind of the next morning?
The background music in that scene, like it really sets you up for suspense and the fear factor, which I love.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything about one of the woodsman scenes that I don't love, if I'm honest, which kind of brings me to my biggest criticism, which is the next day, where we get a new legend and it's the fishman. And it's almost like it seems like Fred's imagining this one because he doesn't want to have to admit that the lake's rubbish and that they need to go to Camp Big Moose. And so it feels like Fred's made it up, and yet we're about to meet another like character, another villain. And I'd rather have stuck with the woodsman throughout. I think they were such a scary villain. They were good enough. They could have carried a movie on their own. Whereas I think the fishman's a step down. And then I think the witch is kind of a further step down. I would have liked, that's like my biggest criticism with the movie, is I would have liked to have seen the woodsman throughout. JayBee, do you have any thoughts on the change between villains? Do you enjoy it?
I don't know. It is such a weird message because we're meant to kind of take the shorthand, at least until the end, that little moose good, big moose bad. But then we go to this lake and it is like revolting. It looks like there is like it literally. It reminds me of my first reaction to going into Falkirk. It was just disgusting. I was like, bloody hell, this is crap, isn't it? But just imagine the stench of the thing. But then it's like, oh yeah, we're going to Big Moose, and it's like maybe if they just kept it as that story, and it would have just felt a bit like camp themed because they are telling like the scary stories and stuff. That could have just been a little running motif of like, oh, there's a legend behind that, there's a legend behind this. But then to actually show the fishman later on was where I kind of was a bit like, oh, so. Are we gonna rinse and repeat like Legends Chase, and it's just like, we could have just stuck with the Woodmans really. Like.
Dan, what was your thoughts on the multiple villains?
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. So I rewatched this film this morning for the first time in quite a while, and it's just like with Chill Out Scooby Doo. I could remember most of it. I remembered certain parts, but there were other parts where I didn't remember until I saw them again, and I totally forgot that there was other villains. I totally forgot about the fish like thing. And yeah, I was quite surprised. That took me aback a bit. Like I totally forgot about that. I remember the woodsman because the woodsman was so memorable. But with the fish, I was like, oh, I forgot about this. But yeah, I like it's like JB said, it would have been fine if it was just like the legend, like they just said, oh, there's a legend of this. But the fact that it then became a real thing, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. I wish they had just stuck to the woodsman. I can't even remember if it was ever explained like what it was. Was it, I don't know, like usually when it's an underwater creature, isn't it like usually some sort of submarine or something? But I don't know if it ever even explained how the villain acted as the
Was this one
sea.
not that pervert? The
What?
perverted ranger
Yeah.
that had
Yeah,
like scuba gear on, was it?
wasn't he both? He was both the woodsman and this fish creature. But I
Oh,
just, it didn't feel realistic. I was like, I don't think it was really efficient explained how he was able to do that. But
no.
yeah, it didn't ruin the film. I still really liked the film, but I would have preferred to stick with the woodsman. I think the woodsman was such a good villain in itself. You didn't need anything else. They could have just added more lore to him, added more scenes with him. I think that would have been better.
It almost made it seem a little bit goofy when you consider that these legends were made to protect the secret. And so when this ranger, this perverted ranger, wasn't like the woodsman, he was literally refilling a tank of oxygen, dressing in this suit, and then just like sat there bored underwater waiting for someone to interfere. Oxygen comes close to running out, does a little refill, goes back, just sat there day after day waiting for someone to try and go near the river. Like that's just a ridiculous bit of imagery, though.
Yeah, I mean, I do think they could have managed with just the woodsman, and as well, I feel like they completely forget about the witch at the end. So when you get the unmasking,
Yeah.
you've got the woodsman, then you've got the fishman, and then
Well, I think
it's
the
the
witch was
person.
real, no? I think the witch was
That's one
real.
thing I know about Scooby JB is they're never gonna let it be real around this
Yeah,
era.
the
Like,
witch was real. The witch
there's
actually was real. It was, but it is just throwing a bone to like be a little scary thing, isn't it? Like, oh my gosh.
yeah.
So here's the Wraith. I guess we're back to Zombie Island times.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Sophie, how do you feel about the multiple villains?
I have to disagree with all three of you.
I didn't expect anything else.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, the woodsman could have been like a villain all on its own, but I do actually think the other two kind of made more of a story and elevated it kind of. On the more comical side of the fishman, you know, when they had to go down the dam, I thought that was quite a funny scene, you know, add like the comedy elements, but also I needed it for the fear factor and my Frothny scene. Like they could have died, but they didn't. Like there's actual threat and danger and near-death experiences in this movie. So I needed that scene because like without that scene, you know, it would have been a bit more bland than it was. But yeah, it's a beautiful scene. Frothny, they survive, spoiler alert, but you know, I was on the edge of my seat. I'll just put it as that, you know.
I
And
suppose
for the Spectre Shadow Canyon, you know, the scare, jump scare with Velma, like that's another good scare. Like you need it. Like it's terrifying.
yeah. Oh, I think, like you say, I think there's definitely mixed opinions, but I can see that the Fishman does add quite a bit. I think he adds more than the witch. I feel like the witch adds quite little, but I can see where the Fishman kind of contributes some stuff. I guess kind of going back right to the start of them getting to the lake at Camp Big Moose, because there is all of that scene. There's another kind of summer montage after the titles. I must admit, I captioned this the less good summer song because I feel like they really peaked with the titles. The titles were brilliant. And it's kind of like, oh, this is a summer song too. I just wish I was listening to that one again because that one was really good. Is kind of how I perceive this. But JB, you seem to be pulling a bit of a face. So I'm gonna say you
Me?
disagree with me. Yeah.
No, I'm just getting depressed.
Oh God, no.
No. I think I get what you're saying, but it's like different songs for different purposes, and I think it suits the tone better. Like it isn't trying to like put you in a certain mood like an intro is trying to do, like the intro to anything. But I think it's more of like the montage song where it's kind of like lulling you into it, where it isn't overpowering, like that's the tone, but it's kind of just letting you know where the gang's mindset is versus trying to affect yours. Like, this is them, and at this stage, it's like the calm before the storm. This is them in their state of enjoyment before things get a little bit spooky. So it's definitely one that I'd listen to less, but I think it's like the perfect indication of the gang's mindset versus ours.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and Dan?
Yeah, I think I do agree with what both of you are saying. Obviously, I much preferred the titles song. I thought this was, I don't want to say step down. It was just I preferred first one, but this was still a really good song. And it was like JB said, I think it suited like what its place in the film. I think it did what it needed to. I think the music in this film overall is really good. So yeah, like I said, the titles one will always be my favorite from the film, but I didn't mind this one so much. I thought it was a really good use of music throughout.
And Sophie?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I still love this movie. I mean, this song, sorry. Um, I think there's like the clip on YouTube just to this scene. I will watch it at least once a week. It's such a feel good vibe, you know, I love it. Um, like I say, it's not disappointing when it goes on my Spotify account. Like when it starts playing, I'll happily listen to it and I know all the lyrics to it, and yeah, it's a good song. But I think the beginning, the intro, more, you know, I think after the scary factor, it's just really catchy and you need that vibe, and it's still got the same vibes in this scene, but not not just there, but it's still brilliant.
Definitely. And I do think that this lake scene does kind of facilitate a lot. We see the kids' personalities expanded on much more. It's the introduction of Jessica as well. It's where we first see the fishman, and then obviously things kind of spiral from there. There's the canoe scene and all that sort of stuff where they end up back at camp. So I guess kind of moving on from there, isn't there quite a quick switch back from it being the fisherman to being the woodsman? They're then back at camp, the woodsman attacks the camp, and I feel like from here the gang gets split up quite a few times. So while they're at the camp here, they all get split up, and then I know kind of is it pretty soon after this they actually go to the main camp of Camp Big Moose and then all get split up there as well.
Oh, the main camp. What's wrong with the Little Moose one?
Well, if you say something that's a small bit and then a big bit, it's like, oh, that's the main bit because it's larger.
I don't know. I don't know. That sounds a bit elitist to me. But oh, Camp Big Moose. I mean, what a place! Like, see, we're meant to root for the small one, but oh, I would love
You want to
to.
go to the big one, don't
I
you?
want to go to. I mean, that like aquarium looking thing on its own. Like, I'd want to go just for that.
I thought you were just gonna say the restaurant bit.
The
Wait,
food,
is
yeah.
there? Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be cute. But like, there's the food. There's like an aquarium thing. There's Jessica. Like, what else do you need for
I'm
a
just gonna
trip?
say that as a joke because I thought you were gonna try and defend Daphne, but no, okay.
Well, that being said, last time I went camping, I did literally like nearly die. So if I don't want to go tent camping again, unless all of us decided to go together, because I would in fact do that. But bar that, it's glamping all the way. I would be right in this place.
Yeah, camping's not for me.
I'd be right up there like a rat up a drain fire.
Glamping might work, camping no. But yeah, I have to agree
Unless we all go together.
that I think Camp Big Moose is the one to go to.
Well, how much is it though? Because it must be more expensive.
You'd imagine so, but you've seen the lake at Camp Little Moose. It's just you just don't want to go.
Falkirk, isn't it? You don't want to go.
Gosh. Okay, so Dan, do you remember this bit? Any thoughts on kind of the scene where they're actually in Camp Big Moose, all that sort of stuff?
I used to go camping when I was younger, but I've never really been a fan. I certainly wouldn't go now. If my family suggested, oh, we're going to go on a camping holiday, I'd be like, no. Unless it was to Camp Big Moose. Like if I could be guaranteed this sort of environment, yeah, I would totally do it. Like this looks like a place I could get Wi-Fi, so that's fine. But yeah, I thought they did a good job showcasing it because it's sort of like, yeah, you're supposed to root for Camp Little Moose, but I don't know, they did a really good job of showing us how good Camp Big Moose was. So yeah, I like that. I like that we got to explore that. And I didn't mind, I know we said the characters split up, but I like that because it didn't feel like normally it would just be Shaggy and Scooby doing something and then the rest of the gang just doing something. But it felt like there was loads of different dynamics going on. So yeah, I really like this section of the film.
Okay, perfect. And I feel like Sophie's about to tell us we've all just committed slander by saying that Camp Big Moose is the one to go to. But I'm gonna risk it and ask you what did you think to Camp Big Moose?
I love how it's completely night and day, like they're completely two different camps. Obviously the build with Fred and his story arc, you kind of see Big Moose through the eyes of Fred, and you're like, this isn't my camp, like what are you doing? But I have to agree, like I'm sorry, Little Moose wasn't it. Like I've never been camping, the idea makes me want to throw up, like this is not my thing. And oh sorry Fred, but everybody there was jealous. Like everyone was like, Fred, this is like literally you've taken us. Like, are you for real? Like, come on. But yeah, I think they're splitting up. They all split up, but with all the side characters, like Dan said, the dynamics really changed. You know, and they made it really interesting. They had to kind of share because sometimes, you know, if they split up, it would be a lot of Shaggy and Scooby, and you kind of forget about the others. But with everything else going on and following the 3 different story lines in here, it all worked. It's quite evenly paced out, which I thought was another positive in this movie. Don't get me wrong, I love Shaggy and Scooby, but I need Daphne. Yeah, just need Daphne.
Although if Daphne was a camp counselor for Little Moose, I would go there. I think it would be worth that Falkirkian swimming pool.
So I do think that for all they split up, I think they do a good job of crossing over those stories and bringing them back together as well. I think they bring them back together quite seamlessly. And at that point, it's kind of, you know, revealed that there was this original town, and then the dam was built, and that flooded that town. So then there's like a new town built on top of it. I'm thinking almost like Mystery Begins. There's like a town under the school and stuff like that. I don't know, I really like history. So whenever there's like a bit of a history twist to it, I always really quite enjoy that idea. And I also think it makes the plot then more interesting when it transpires that they need to kind of demolish the dam to be able to show that town. I think it's quite an interesting story. Just gonna kind of open that up to everybody to kind of chip in, but did you all like what they kind of set up there with that idea?
I just don't like history. Like my old history teacher, I'm sure there was a time when he said that I was the most feckless student he's ever had. So that's
You were completely different. I got bought sweets by my history teacher for being the only one that did all the homework.
was he a bit like that ranger from this movie? Was he a bit on the
You've got this
nonsense
issue,
spectrum?
JayBee. You've got this issue. If anybody likes Velma, you insult them.
No, that's not true.
Do you remember, right, in our 2002 Monsters on not 2002, 2004 Monsters Unleashed review, we had an entire disagreement about, is it Patrick is called?
No, I can't be prejudiced because I have a lot of friends that like Velma.
Yeah, but I'm saying if there's a character in Scooby that likes Velma, you don't
Okay,
like
no, but
them.
I had valid. I like Patrick as a character. I had valid reasons back
No,
there.
you didn't.
For yes, I did. That it
Tell
was.
me one character that likes Velma that you don't have an
Hang
issue
on,
with.
let me. Can I think?
You
What's his
because there
face?
isn't one.
That handsome man from Supernatural. Well, both of them, right? They like Velma. They're pretty cool, right? They're pretty awesome. Shaggy as like Velma, one like Nick Pilates
Oh, yeah,
Shaggy.
but that iteration was annoying.
I love Shaggy.
Even I know that iteration was annoying.
What, Haley Kiyoko?
No, no, like the Mystery Incorporated. No.
No, I like a lot of characters that like Velma. I think that's an extraordinary allegation.
I don't think it is. I know we've had multiple disagreements about this. But anyway, back to Dan and Sophie's opinions, because you've just completely got over
But
this.
you did it. It's just manipulation of the narrative. It's taking my voice away.
Did you two like the idea of, you know, there's that initial town that got flooded and kind of all the history behind it and kind of the motive of what they're looking to do and stuff?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna say
go
yes.
first.
I feel like for me in a history situation, like all stuff really freaks me out. So anything to do with history is already like really freaky and scary and haunting. And for that to kind of be, you know, the end result, I think it even add more to the fear factor, which really just elevated the movie again, which I'll keep going on about how amazing this movie is. Like I'll do it at the end. I'm sorry, it'll be a 5 to 10 hour ramble about it.
And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I really liked the idea, and I really liked how they were building like the law. Like it was very, came across very clear. You understood it, and it felt like classic Scooby. Like it's not a trope that's done to death. It doesn't feel repetitive. But I know in the past we've had sort of episodes in the old show where, there was an old town or an old whatever, and this has been built ahead of it and stuff. So it felt good, but it felt like a refreshing way to do it, and I think it added to the story. I don't know. I neither love nor hate history. I'm very neutral with history, but yeah, this one I really like the way it was presented, and I think it added to the film. It made the narrative, it made it more because obviously, like I said, it added to the lore, so you felt like stuff wasn't just happening. You understood like the backstory.
Yeah, I always like a bit of backstory. I do think it kind of adds to it a bit and kind of makes it more engaging as well. And I do think they've tried to make this one as engaging as possible. So once the dam's drained and they kind of go into the old town and everything, we ultimately get to the point where there is the unmasking. And I think they put a lot into this as well. So obviously there's 3 villains, so you kind of like, oh, maybe there's going to be 3 unmaskings. And then you unmask one and it's another villain, then you unmask them and it's the one that JB's been complaining about this entire review.
Wait, I thought you were gonna mention Babyface Berretti.
I've not got to that yet.
But
So like you kind of think that, like I said, you kind of think there's going to be multiple people. They kind of do that double unmasking to just been the one that JB complains about, and then so it's like, oh, is it just that one person? And then as JB just said, there's then Babyface Berretti.
I think they should have searched the Ranger's house as well. I don't think Velma's the only one. I think there's more. I really do. I truly do. I think there's a sequel waiting to happen. It's just an investigation into that man.
You're genuinely insane.
But yeah,
Crazy.
Babyface and voiced by Mark Hamill as well, I believe, which is just completely that's just craziness. Like we got Mark Hamill as Babyface Berretti is just really cool, and it's something that you can only really do in animation without it coming across as hokey, and that's what I love about it. It's just, and it's like Scooby. It always you kind of have to dispel some believability a bit, and I'd rather do it for a reveal like Babyface Berretti versus like this creature. It's so realistic. Oh, but it was really a robot, and now that we've unmasked it, it just looks like a crap robot. But in action, it was like a real life thing. Like, and this is the type of hokiness that I can really, really get behind. So I'm happy.
Dan, what did you think about the double unmasking that was just one person, but then the second person as well? Did you enjoy kind of all the complexities to that?
Yeah, can't remember the first time I ever watched this film, but I do remember I was taken by surprise by the what was it, Babyface Beretta. I thought that was it was quite a nice little twist because obviously you had the traditional taking the mask off the monster, but then there was an additional twist. So I really liked that. It really worked well with the plot. I do think it's really creepy that this grown-ass man was able to infiltrate this camp and act like a child.
Yeah.
Um, but it's one of those where it doesn't feel too out of left field. Like you're kind of like, oh, okay. It's not signposted throughout the film, but yeah, it worked. As I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion. I quite like the Ranger. Like I love it. I don't know who voices him, but I just love how he just doesn't seem to care. Like he's just even when he's declaring his love for Velma, it's in a very just casual way. I do think though there should have been one more person because like you mentioned before, it would go from the Chris creature to um the woodsman awfully fast. I know again, classic Scooby. They did this in the old show, the Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts, where one guy was the 3 villains, but. I don't know, just for me, it stretches believability a little bit. I think maybe even if it was just like, oh, this is one of our accomplices. Like maybe the ranger could have been the woodsman, and then they had hired someone to be the fish person. I don't know. I would have much preferred that, but
Not
no.
like a drone thing for the witch, maybe.
Or even if it was
Yeah,
like the person that dropped them off on the bus at the start, and that's how Babyface Berretti got into camp or something like that.
yeah, that would make sense.
Good
Yeah, I
point.
like
Could it
that.
have been Jessica? Because actually, I do like her. But what's her purpose? Like,
There isn't
real,
one.
like, what does she do? She's just there.
Yeah, I feel like some of it's maybe a tick box to give people character. Like Fred's definitely got character here. Velma, they kind of give her the sheriff to make her seem interesting. And I'm wondering if Daphne's arc is kind of just the jealous bit of Jessica.
Yeah, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But it works in this, I'm not denying that. It's just, I'd rather more Frapney than watch Velma go, ha, like, you think you're a scuba instructor? Well, I can do it too. Like, I don't know, man. But ultimately, like, I don't know why Fred even notices that Jessica's there when Daphne's like, oh, it's just, what a fumble.
I must agree with Dan. The sheriff is not as bad as JB's been making it out throughout this entire thing. I thought they were quite a good character. Sophie, what did you think about the unmasking?
I feel like it's classic Scooby, like the good guy was the villain, and then I was actually generally shocked. I remember the first time watching it, where Deke was Babyface Berretti. I was like, oh my god, like we were on about Chill Out Scooby Doo with like their like shock like reveal, which wasn't that shocking. This one I was actually like gobsmacked. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe it, sort of thing. Which I just from being like, oh yeah, like of course that guy did it, the nice, sweet guy. I will say Ranger Knutson isn't as bad as JB makes out. I do find it quite funny. I understand it's a bit weird, but I do. It's just funny. I'm sorry. There's so many good gags, and even though you might find them repetitive, even though there's a lot of them, they're quick. They're quick gags, and then you move on. Um, but I just love this movie. Yeah, I love it. But yeah, but going back, yeah, that was it. Going back to Dan thing. The Ranger was wearing two masks. He's clearly trying to get to places really quickly. Like, it's not like he stored them away. He's wearing both outfits, trying to be both villains at the same time. So, I will applaud Ranger Knudsen for doing that. Like, it's a tough gig. Yeah, it's a tough gig. And well done to him. He tried his best, but of course the gang followed his plan. I mean, why wouldn't they?
So with that being said, I think we're now on to verdicts. So I think there's not much mystery behind exactly what this is going to be, but we'll start off with JayBee as always. Is it a smash or a pass?
I love this one. I think there's very little fault with this. If it was up to me, I think this is what modern Scooby should be. There's that element of fear and genuine jeopardy. Like, there's got to be somewhere where you're a bit like on the edge of your seat, but ultimately it is fun. It is a good time. It's a palate cleanser. And I think all the gang really are kind of at their best here, except for maybe Velma, because she is good in this, but I don't think she ever solves anything or does much in terms of detective work. Although her being a support unit for the girl, I forgot her name, but she's a bit like closed off, a little bit on the antisocial side and helping her come out of her shell a bit. I think that's such a brilliant arc for someone like Velma that I don't really mind that she isn't like brainboxing all the time.
I enjoy that she's
So
not.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think this is a very easy smash, and I just hope that this creative team can hopefully come back and do another one. It's been a while, but they could still do it, I'm sure. What about you, Millie Millie? Would you smash or pass Scooby Doo Camp Scare?
It's a definite smash. I think it's an outstanding movie. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I almost think if they were all done to this level, and for me this is quite a big statement, but I think that I wouldn't hold What's New in such high regard if all the movies were like this, because a lot of this was everything I loved about that. It's the music that gives you energy, the energy to be fully invested in the movie, the plot, that it is a bit quirky, that there is some things that's a little bit out there, but that it's certainly a step on in terms of modernization from the Where Are You era. I really like this. There's very little I could fault about it, and I did try. Like, I was going into this knowing that I was possibly the person that was going to try and be the most critical. So I was actively looking for things that would be wrong with it, and I struggled. I found two. And even then, it was things that were like a bit of a stretch to really criticize it. And honestly, the title song for it, I've been humming it in my head all the way throughout this review. Like, as JB's been talking, I've gone, and then realizing that I'm meant to be responding to what he's saying. Like, that song is going to be living in my head for a good few weeks after watching this. So yeah, a
Yay!
really, really strong smash. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, it's definitely a smash for me. I don't think I love it quite as much as Sophie does, but then again, I don't think anyone does. Um, but no, I do genuinely like this film. I remember going into it, like I'd heard a lot about this film. I think a lot of Scooby fans hold this as one of their favorites. I think as well because it has that dark tone to it. I think it's a really good story. I love sort of the summer aspect of it. I love the characters in it. I like the different dynamics. And I think the plot it goes on quite quickly. I know all the Scooby films aren't always long, but sometimes like the Happy Halloween, where it just felt like a drag after a while. This one doesn't. It's quite well paced. It goes from different set to different setting. Um, yeah, I think it's definitely a summer film. I think you get the most out of it if you watch it in the summer. It's like something like High School Musical 2, where if you watch it in the summer during a heat wave, you just because then you can sort of you can feel it, you can sort of really, I think, get more enjoyment out of it. But it was quite fun this morning rewatching it, just as an escape from this horrible bitter cold that we're currently going through. I really like the Woodsman. I wish we'd seen more of the Woodsman. I wouldn't be surprised if because I know a lot of the new Scooby projects are sort of have old Scooby villains as sort of like a villain in it. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see the Woodsman again. I think that'd be really cool. But it's definitely a smash. I think it's something that the majority of Scooby fans would enjoy. It
Mhm.
is. It's just a really fun, quick film. yeah, it's fun. I think that's the word for it. It's just a fun film.
I like that. I think you've mentioned some really good stuff. I'm happy that you mentioned High School Musical too, because it's got the song out of my head and now I'm singing the soundtrack of that as well. It's an equally good summer movie. And I do think, as you were saying, that there was a lot more to see from the Woodsman. I think they were perhaps underused, and I'd be really quite happy to see them return. I think Camp Scare was notable enough that I know like they've brought some of the Where Are You villains back and stuff like that. I do think Camp Scare was notable enough for people to know where it was from and why they've done it. Sophie, again, absolutely no mystery behind this, but for you, is it a smash or a pass?
So, what I think of the best Scooby Doo movie in the whole entire world. Okay, yeah, it's not an opinion, it's just a fact. Yes, it's my favorite movie, but it's just facts as well. Yeah, it's different things, opinion and facts. Um, um, I love this movie. I love the darker tone. I think that's why a lot of people love Zombie Island, but at the same time, it feels more natural compared to like a normal Scooby movie, with stereotypical factors from like Where Are You? It's more Zombie Island, you might think they're more adults. I know we said here probably more adults, but it just feels like a Scooby movie, but with that added extra fear. There's actual threat in this movie. I just feel like JayBee said, you're on the edge of your seat and there's not a dull moment. If there is a dull moment, you need that breather. You need to calm down. You need to reflect on what you just watched. But the characters, I think with the kids, Trudy, Luke, and Deacon, they all mimic the gang, and it just shows that they're just ordinary, like people, like anybody can be like them, sort of thing. I love the fear factor, like I keep saying. Going back to the Woodsman, don't bring him back because Warner Bros will butcher him. Like, I'm sorry, but the Woodsman is brilliant. Like, we don't want a situation of Return to Zombie Island. Like, I think I would cry. Like, that is too much. That would be actually like a knife through the heart. So we will stop there. We'll keep Camp Scare. No sequel, thank you very much, because we don't want our childhood ruined. So I would actually cry. I think that would be the downfall of Scooby Doo. I'm sorry, I don't want to say them words, but I'm going off topic. But yeah, the song, the animation, it's like Dan said, it's a fun, feel-good movie, and I love summer, I hate winter, so I'll be watching it all year round. At least, every month I'll be watching this movie in the background. I love it. I'm sorry, I could keep going on and on, but there's not one negative to this movie. I'm sorry, there just can't be. Like, even Milly tried to find something, but there wasn't anything. So I'm sorry, it's just the best movie in the world. Best Scooby movie. It's a smash. I've got nothing else to say. It's just, I love it. I can't keep going on about it, but I just love it.
See, when you were saying you don't want them to make a sequel, I've now got visions in my head of like the kids are the ones there solving a mystery without the gang. They get their own spin-off, completely forgetting that one of the kids was a villain. But like had this great cute image of how like, there's a distinct Fred one, there's a distinct Velma one, stuff like that, and they're solving a mystery. Like
they'll butcher it. Like,
they would. You're 100% right that they
forget
would.
about it. Just forget about that thought and just accept Camp Scare for what it is, the best Scooby movie. Forget any sequel because it will be ruined, and we don't want that to be ruined. Like, you can't ruin perfection. Don't even, you can't fix what's not broken. So just keep it as it is, and yeah, we'll be all happy. We'll never have to watch anything
Gary
from
Glitter didn't
2016 onwards. Like,
Oh,
why can't movies be like Camp Scare again?
we should ask someone.
Hopefully they will be.
Ask,
I'm not asking a
on
lot.
register. Ask someone. Who are you gonna ask? Who are you gonna call? They should all be like this. They should all be like this. But yeah, I mean, what else is there? I mean, what can you say? Like unanimous smashes all around. Good laughs, good cheers. Like it's just been fantastic. And I will admit, I would come out of camping retirement if we could all go somewhere special together. But yeah, we'll park that idea as is appropriate. But yeah, I think that wraps up this video. I don't think we do community news at the end of these anymore, but yeah, Scooby-Doo happens. That's cool.
There's a new Valentine's Day jumper out at Asda.
Oh, is there?
I showed you a picture
really?
of
Yeah, I've
it.
forgotten it. Do you want to pull it up so we can go through it on the screen? So, we're going to talk about some brief community news, and that is that there is some new Scooby merch at Asda George. to celebrate Valentine's Day. Now, I will admit, at this point, I'm kind of in the mood for a bit of loving, and so I want to find a romantic adjacent Scooby Doo movie to pick as my one, which I do believe, because we missed out a week, could very well fall on the week of Valentine's Day. I don't remember when Valentine's Day is, so that's kind of in the back burner.
Is it Stage Fright that's the romantic one?
I have no clue.
Mm.
So that actually
It's
looks
gotta
really
be.
cool. So it's
Gotta be.
£24. Scooby Doo Love Heart navy printed sweatshirt.
If I turn my phone on, is it going to show up on the screen?
You can show it around, but I'll edit it in anyway.
It's just going to glare, isn't it?
Oh, that's so cute.
I want it.
Oh, adorable.
So I love that a lot. And you know what? Oh, if I get it early, we could almost wear it for
For the review.
CHD week.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that'd
this
be
would be
cute.
really cool. Oh, that's brilliant. So let's sort this out at the end of this episode, because we still have two reviews on the schedule. Obviously we'll have to bump it up, but whatever. No one actually cares. So two movies. There's a Millie movie and a JayBee movie. We'll do yours next. You tell us right here, right now, what is your wish? What is your dream?
I believe the one we decided on for me was Legend of the Vampire, right?
Oh,
The one with the Yowie Yahoo.
Yeah.
That's
Why do you
good.
seem so
I'm well looking
confused?
forward to that. That's
It's
gonna
Hex Girls. How's there anything confusing about
that's
that?
The
gonna
Hex
get me through
Girls.
the week.
Yeah, the
That
Hex
is.
Girls. We like the Hex Girls.
I don't know which one I'm gonna choose yet, but I am in the mood for some romance. So if anybody does have any romantic suggestions for me, please comment them down below.
Oh, you were gonna do Velma, not Velma. What's it called? Daphne and Velma, just so we were disagreeing.
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna choose something romantic. Something romantic. So keep that in mind. So yeah. Thank you so much to everyone for watching. To get in the process of wrapping things up, Dan, where can people find you on the internet?
yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at danfaz94.
And Sophie, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Scooby Doo for life.
That's brilliant. I'll leave all those in the description down below. And that's all. That's where our link tree will be as well, which will give you all those good links, all our spicy content. So thank you so much for watching. If you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on our next adventure.